So you've recently opened a Stripe account, and within a couple of weeks or just a couple of sales, Stripe literally shuts you down with no notice other than just an email saying that they can no longer do business with you. Now, this is extremely frustrating. Obviously, after you've spent all this time getting your store up and running, getting some traffic and starting to test your offer, and then all of a sudden Stripe shuts it down. So I'm going to talk to you today about why this happens, and then I'm going to present you some options if you're not able to solve this problem with Stripe. So first of all, why does this happen? So one of the main reasons is your IP is mismatching where you see your businesses and you reside in. So anytime there's too many differences in, for example, your company is in Germany, but you're physically in the US, their AI picks up on that. And oftentimes, if you're in a high risk vertical, they just shut down the account. So it's not really a human that's intervening here. So your best bet is always to open your Stripe account where your business is located and where you're located, meaning your residential address, wherever you indicate that is. So I know it sounds silly because people travel, but you should take good care in opening up your account in the country where your business is in and where you're physically located. And try not to use VPNs, try not to mask your IP, because that's going to be a big indicator for them that there's a problem. Second, if your residential address is different than the business's address, that as well could be a situation where they just decide to shut your account down. Now, I'm not saying that you can't dispute this. I'm just explaining the reasons, because their AI is programmed a certain way to kind of find these anomalies, and they just arbitrarily shut down accounts. So this is all done without a human intervention. Your URL that you submitted or your website that you submitted is not where you're sending sales from. So if you submitted abc.com and then while you're integrating you decide xyz.com is sending the sales, well, obviously that's going to get you shut down. So they do verify, obviously, the website where the sales are coming in. If your website is not live, is not ready, for example, if your website has no checkout page, or if you have kind of like a login page and people can't actually access it. So anytime where it looks like there's actually no product or service being sold and there's no checkout page, that is another reason that they may just terminate you without reason and very quickly. Another thing, and a detail that you should really pay attention to, is your website details. Like, for example, on your website, it could say an address in your terms and conditions in the page footer, a phone number for support, and so forth. If that differs from what you indicated when you were setting up the Stripe account, that again could cause their AI to trigger an alert and shut you down. So what can you do about this? I mean, if any of these reasons are the reason, or if you've done any of these things and you suspect this might be the reason, you can just write to their support and say, hey, explain the situation. I've been shut down. I would like my account re-enabled. I realized I was traveling last week and I opened my account while I was in the US, but my company is in the UK, for example, or whatever the case is, back home, and I'm, looking to start my account up. So just explain what changes you've made on your account settings to see if they're going to be willing to take you back. Now, I do get a lot of questions from merchants saying, what if I just shut down that account and start it again? I mean, if you have the same business name and you have the same website and your name and so forth, that's going to probably trigger a fraud alert. So it's not going to yield much better results. Your best bet is really to write to their support and see if there's somebody that can help you. When you do write to their support, if they reply, try to ask for somebody on the phone. Say, can somebody call me? Can I speak to somebody? It's always better to try to have human intervention. So those are the main reasons. Now, there's a couple of other side reasons. So for example, if you're a drop shipping merchant and you're drop shipping things and your fulfillment is outside the US, it's a big red flag for them. They don't like drop shipping businesses. So I'm gonna post down a episode that I did specifically on drop shipping businesses and payment processing solutions for those businesses. You can contact me, my company, Direct Paynet, and I have obviously some other options on that episode. Now, another thing, another reason is non-US accounts get more scrutiny. So anything outside of, first world countries, US, Canada, UK, Western Europe, and you're opening an account with Stripe, it's just going to get more scrutiny because typically these accounts just bring in more fraud and more chargebacks and so forth. So keep in mind, if you're not in the US and you're opening up a Stripe account, all the stuff that I mentioned before about your IP address and your address and the details on your website, that has to be super, super clean to make sure that there's no obvious issues there when you're opening up a Stripe account. Now, if you go ahead and clean that up and contact their support and nothing happens and you're just kind of stuck and you need some other solutions, there are merchant account providers like Direct PayNet. I'll put a link down below. You can contact us and explain, basically what your business model is, and we can get you a merchant account. Now, the process for a merchant account is a little bit longer because you actually have to fill in a full application, but this is a more certain way for you to get payment processing services for your business, because we will be aware of what you're selling, what your website is, and any anomalies that may exist. For example, if you live in a different area than your company and so forth, and we will find solutions for you for that specific use case. Now, if you are just testing, a business model and you're not really sure if it's going to work out and you just want to drive a little bit of traffic and test, getting a merchant account is usually not your best option because there is a process and it does take about a week or so to get that set up. Your best bet, if you're new and you're testing out your business model, is to go with another third party like Stripe. There are other options out there. A couple are Braintree, Adyen, 2Checkout. There's a handful more. These are called payment aggregators. What they do is they just have a very streamlined sign-up process. They don't do very many verifications. This is the reason companies like Stripe shut people down, because they don't do verifications prior for you to set up. And then once you start driving some volume, that's when they start looking at your account, and that's where you shut down. So getting a merchant account, your verifications get done ahead of time. Once you're approved, you're ready to go. You can process. You don't have to worry about these types of things. Now, the flip side is, these types of aggregators like Stripe and Braintree and so forth don't do verifications. You get us set up quickly, but you run the risk, obviously, of getting shut down or having some issues because they verify after you get started. So keep that in mind. Also make sure, obviously, before you apply to anybody else and before you do anything, correct all the issues that I mentioned above, your IP address, and make sure everything on your website makes sense and, could be submitted, and nobody's going to say, oh, well, why does that address say this, but you're submitting this, and so forth. So make sure you clean that up. These are just small details that get merchants declined and terminated very, very often. So just pay attention to the small details about the addresses on your website, the addresses that you submit when you're signing up with a processor, and where you are physically and so forth. If you do close your account with Stripe and then resubmit, try to change some details about it. For example, if you have another website or another business, then that would change something on the account. If you, as I said earlier, if you do go ahead and just submit the same thing, it's going to yield the same result. So be careful of that. If you are selling to the US, and you're a non-US business, or you have a US company, but you don't have a US resident director, then I'm going to link down an episode below that really talks about that scenario. But there are a couple of options. It does make, obviously getting payment processing a little bit more difficult, but keep in mind, you cannot get a US merchant account specifically if you don't have at least one resident director or principal on your company. So like I said, check out the episode below if you're not in the US and you're looking to get US payment processing. And as I said earlier, please feel free to contact Direct PayNet. I have plenty of tips and plenty of tricks for you guys on how to get effective payment processing to make sure that your business is up and running and that you don't have to worry about payment processing. Because one thing that's extremely frustrating is, you have all these different elements in your business. You have, buying traffic and conversions and, testing your copy and all this stuff. Payment processing should not be something that you have to worry about. And that's what myself and my team pride ourselves on, is making it as easy as possible for you to get payments set up on your website and get you going. So payments should be something that you're not thinking about when you're starting your business, but it's a very important component in your business. So I thank you very much for listening. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and share this episode to anybody who's interested. And I look forward to seeing you soon.